I was more afraid of my own son than I was of dying alone. That's the truth I never thought I'd say out loud, especially not to a stranger in a white coat who smelled like sanitizer and false concern. But there I was, sitting in Dr. Martinez's office at the VA clinic on Roosevelt Avenue, listening to him tell me that living alone at my age was dangerous. The irony tasted bitter in my mouth like old coffee grounds. He had no idea what dangerous really looked like. Dangerous was the way my son Marcus looked at me when he talked about my house. Dangerous was the way his wife Angela counted my Social Security checks with her eyes every time she visited. Dangerous was the slow, calculated way they'd been circling my life like vultures, waiting for me to fall. Dr. Martinez leaned forward in his chair, his young face all serious and concerned. Mrs. Washington, at 85, living alone, presents significant risks: falls, medical emergencies, isolation. His voice trailed off as he flipped through my chart. Your blood pressure medication alone requires careful monitoring. I wanted to laugh. Falls? I'd been falling my whole life. Fell when my husband left me with 3 babies and a mortgage I couldn't afford. Fell when I lost my job at the textile mill after 37 years because they moved production to Mexico. Fell when my youngest daughter died in that car accident on I-95. Each time I picked myself up, dusted off, and kept going. But this fall they were talking about, the one where I'd break a hip and lie helpless on my kitchen floor for hours, that wasn't what scared me. What scared me was who would find me. Doctor, I said, my voice steadier than my hands, with all due respect, you don't know my family. He looked puzzled, probably expecting gratitude for his concern. I'm sure they care about your well-being, Mrs. Washington. Have you discussed assisted living options with them? Assisted living. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. I'd heard Marcus and Angela whispering about those places. Not the nice ones with gardens and activities, the cheap ones, the ones where Medicaid pays most of the bill, and families visit twice a year with guilty smiles and store-bought cookies. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're still here, maybe you understand what I'm talking about. Maybe you've sat in a doctor's office and realized that the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you most need protection from. It started small, the way these things always do. Marcus began visiting more often after I turned 80. At first I was grateful. My son finally making time for his aging mother. But I noticed things. The way he'd walk through my house like he was taking inventory. The way he'd mention repairs that needed to be done, always with a shake of his head and a comment about how expensive everything was getting. Mom, this furnace is older than dirt. When it goes out in the middle of winter, what are you gonna do? Mom, look at this roof. You got water damage in the back bedroom. This place is falling apart around you. Mom, you shouldn't be climbing ladders to change light bulbs. What if you fell? Every observation came with the same unspoken conclusion. I couldn't take care of myself anymore. But I knew what I couldn't take care of. I couldn't take care of the way Marcus looked at my house, like it was already his. Couldn't take care of how Angela would pick up my mail and sort through it, making little comments about my bills, Mama Washington, your electric bill is so high. You're heating this whole big house for just yourself. Couldn't take care of the way they'd exchange glances when they thought I wasn't looking. The kind of glances that said, soon. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed 3 children their breakfast every morning for 20 years, where I'd helped with homework and bandaged scraped knees and listened to teenage heartbreak. Marcus walked in without knocking, which he'd started doing more and more. Mom, we need to talk. The way he said it, I knew this wasn't a conversation. This was a verdict. Angela was with him, carrying a manila folder thick with papers. They sat across from me at my own table, and I felt like a defendant in my own court. We've been looking at some places, Angela started, her voice sweet like artificial honey. Really nice places. Clean, safe, with medical staff on site 24/7. She opened the folder and spread out brochures like she was dealing cards. Sunny Gardens Senior Community, Golden Years Care Center, Peaceful Meadows Assisted Living. The names all sounded the same, all trying to make warehouses for the elderly sound like vacation resorts. Mom, listen, Marcus said, and I could hear his father in his voice, that tone that brooked no argument. We found a really good place. It's not far from us, so we can visit regularly. They have activities, meal service, housekeeping. How much, I asked, though I already knew the answer would be a lie. It's very reasonable, Angela said quickly. And with your Social Security and the equity in this house, there it was, the equity in this house. The house I'd paid for with 40 years of factory work, overtime shifts, and sacrifice. The house where I'd raised my children and buried my husband's ashes in the backyard rose garden. The house that was apparently no longer mine to decide about. I'm not selling my house, I said quietly. Marcus leaned back in his chair, and I saw frustration flash across his face. Mom, be realistic. You can't maintain this place anymore. The property taxes alone are eating you alive. And what happens when you have a stroke or break your hip? You could lie here for days before anyone finds you. Maybe that's not the worst thing that could happen to me, I said. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Angela started shuffling her brochures nervously. Marcus stared at me like I'd lost my mind. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. I looked at my son, this man I'd carried for 9 months, pushed into the world during the snowstorm in December, nursed through pneumonia and chickenpox and teenage rebellion. This man who used to bring me dandelions he'd picked from the yard and call them flowers. This man who now sat in my kitchen calculating my net worth. It means I'd rather die alone in my own home than live trapped somewhere else so you can sleep better at night. Marcus's face went red. That's not fair, Mom. We're trying to help you. Are you? Or are you trying to help yourselves? The words came out sharper than I intended, but they were true. I'd seen the way they looked at my neighborhood, how it was coming up, how property values were rising as young professionals moved in and renovated the old houses. I'd seen Angela on Zillow, looking up comparable sales. This is about money, I continued. My money, my house, my life insurance policy. You're not worried about me falling down. You're worried about me falling behind on payments and messing up your inheritance. Angela started to protest, but Marcus held up his hand. Fine, he said, standing up. You want to be stubborn? You want to risk your life to prove a point? Fine. But don't expect us to come running when you need help. They left, taking their brochures and their righteous indignation with them. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after they were gone, listening to the house settle around me. Every creak and groan sounded different now, not like age or wear, but like freedom. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've made some changes. I had a medical alert system installed, not because I'm afraid of falling, but because I want to control who finds me if I do. I've made friends with my neighbors, real friends, not family members who see dollar signs when they look at me. Mrs. Chen next door brings me soup when she makes extra. Young David across the street checks my mail when I'm not feeling well, and I tutor his daughter in math every Thursday after school. I've updated my will too, made some very specific changes about who gets what and under what circumstances. Amazing how clearly you can think when you're not worried about disappointing people who've already decided to be disappointed in you. Marcus calls sometimes, brief, dutiful conversations that dance around the elephant in the room. He asks about my health, my bills, whether I'm managing okay. He doesn't ask if I'm happy, if I'm lonely, if I miss the family dinners we used to have, before everything became about my inadequacies. Angela doesn't call at all. Last week, I went back to see Dr. Martinez for my regular checkup. He asked the same questions about living alone, about safety, about support systems. But this time, when I told him I was staying in my house, he nodded and made a note in my chart. You seem more settled, he said, more at peace. I wanted to tell him that peace isn't the absence of danger. Peace is knowing exactly what kind of danger you're facing and choosing it anyway. Peace is looking at your options and picking the one that lets you keep your dignity intact. I was told nobody would care about an old woman's stubborn pride. If you prove that wrong today, hit subscribe. More stories are coming, and I'm not done talking. The truth is, I might die alone in this house. I might fall and break my hip and lie on the kitchen floor for hours before someone finds me. I might have a stroke in my sleep or a heart attack in my garden. These are the risks Dr. Martinez was worried about. The dangers my son used to justify his plans for my life. But here's what they don't understand. I've been afraid before, real afraid. Afraid of poverty after my husband left. Afraid of raising children alone. Afraid of losing my job, my home, my dignity. I survived all of that by making my own choices, even when they were hard choices, even when they were wrong choices. They were mine. At 85, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of living someone else's version of my life. I'm afraid of sitting in a sterile room, watching TV shows I don't like, eating food that tastes like cardboard, while strangers who call me sweetie decide when I eat, when I bathe, when I can have visitors. I'm afraid of becoming a burden to be managed rather than a person to be loved. So yes, Dr. Martinez was right. Living alone at my age is dangerous, but so was living with my family. The difference is the dangers of living alone are honest dangers. Falls, illness, emergencies. These are risks that come with being human, with growing old, with the simple act of existing in a body that's been working for 85 years. The dangers of living with family who see you as a problem to be solved. Those are the dangers that eat away at your soul while keeping your body safe. Those are the dangers that make you disappear long before you die. When people ask me if I'm lonely, I tell them the truth. I'm less lonely now than I was when I was surrounded by people who'd already decided I was too much trouble. I have my books, my garden, my neighbors who choose to care about me instead of being obligated to. I have my independence, my dignity, and my own kitchen table where I can sit and remember better times without someone telling me I'm living in the past. Tomorrow, Mrs. Chen is bringing her grandchildren over to help me plant tomatoes. Young David is going to fix the loose step on my front porch, not because he has to, but because he wants to make sure I don't trip. These people don't know about my house's equity or my life insurance policy. They don't see me as a liability or a burden. They see me as a neighbor, a friend, a person worth caring about just because I exist. That's worth more than all the safety that money can buy. My doctor said living alone at 85 was dangerous. I told him, so was living with my family. Some dangers are worth facing if it means you get to face them as yourself.